Thank you, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Grateful to be on base. Grateful to be among such disciplined people, regimented people, people that are willing to be of service to not only the community but to the world. So it's big respect to you guys. It's an honor to be here. But yeah, my name is Darren Waller. I feel like everybody on this earth today that is alive has a light inside of them that is unique to only to them, gifts that they have that nobody else may have, an ability to do something that nobody else may be able to do, and just be somebody that nobody else has the ability to be. And I feel like that is what defines somebody. I don't feel like it is the amount of money you have in the bank, the things that you may have accomplished, the status you may obtain. I feel like it's what's inside of you and how you use that to impact the world is what really defines you. And I like to call it a light. And I like to tell people to shine their light. And for me, it took me a while to get to a place where I really felt like I was shining. I had everything on paper. My life always looked good. I always used to think in my head at one point, everybody loves my life except for me. And I was always like, why is that the case? You know, everything that people told me that I should do and strive for to be successful, I did. When I grew up, I knew I was good at sports from a young age. I was intelligent in school. I had a 4.0 GPA. I had good manners and respect. I said yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, like a good kid from the South is supposed to do. Got a Division I football scholarship. From there, ended up graduating from college, ended up making it to the NFL. And I find myself in the NFL, and I'm like, why am I so miserable? You know, I did everything. I checked every box. Like, what seems to be missing here? But it was the internal component I was missing the whole time. Like, I'm a human being doing all these things, but I'm not a human doing. I'm a human being. Like, who am I? I didn't know who I was. And in order for me to know who I am, I got to sit still and reflect. And for me, that starts with, you know, realizing that I had no idea who I was. I was hiding behind drugs and alcohol. I started using when I was 15 years old, up until the age of 25. And I hid behind that. I hid behind masks every single day of my life when I was a young kid, trying to fit into every single group. If it was the athletes, I wore one mask to be with the athletes. If it was to try to be around girls and impress them, I put another mask on. If it was going to class, it was a whole separate mask. So it's like not knowing or feeling an established identity of who I am. And then also for me, I really had no vision for the future. I didn't know who I wanted to be. And even more so than that, I didn't feel like I was worthy of a great future. I didn't feel like I was worthy of being up in front of people or, you know, people seeing me and saying, oh, he's doing great things. Like, I didn't feel like I was worthy of that. I didn't feel like there was any kind of character being developed in me. My biggest habits, my biggest character traits became lying, became stealing, became manipulating, self-defeating, self-sabotaging. That became the essence of my character over time. I had no boundaries in my life. I had no ability to be able to tell somebody no. You know, I've been a people pleaser my whole life. I'm still trying to fight it. I had to impress you. I couldn't feel good about myself until you gave me a thumbs up. And that's no way to live. And the thing that it culminates all into was my life was all about me. Addiction, alcoholism it really just makes you focus on, okay, I want to change the way that I feel right now. It doesn't matter who I may affect in the process, what I may tear down in this process, but essentially it's all about me. And that's not who I truly was. You know, I cared about other people. I probably almost cared too much, but the fear and the anxiety and just the shame of who I was and the thoughts in my head of thinking like, man, I'm just not enough. The only way for me to quiet that down and change the way that I felt was through drugs and alcohol. And it led me down the road to overdose. It led me down to being arrested and all these things. And it's just like, the reason why I come up here and try to share my story, just put myself out here, is because I don't want people to have to go through that like I did. Because it's not fun. It's not great. Every time I bring it up, you know, I start shaking my pits, start sweating a little more. It's just like, I don't want that for anybody. And so it's like, how do you go from that to really changing the essence of your life from the inside out? And I have this acronym. Like I say SHINE a lot. I probably already said it a lot. And, for me, I break the huddle down on SHINE whenever we're at practice and I'm in the middle. I made an acronym out of it, And so I start with the letter S, and it's self-awareness. So for me, it's like, okay, I have to shine the light on myself. Like, who am I really? Like, where do I struggle? What are my strengths? And look at it objectively and look at it and say, oh man, like I have a lot of fear. I have a lot of, when I was growing up, this really hurt me, and I've been carrying it with me through my entire life. And I haven't done anything about it. Like, self-awareness is the starting point for you to change your life, for you to live a life that you respect. Like, if I don't know who I am, if I don't know where I'm at, where my starting point is, there's no way I can get to where I want to go. And once you do that, once you know what's affecting you, then okay, like, now I can make a change. Now the power's in my court. I don't know if anybody's like me. I was a victim a lot. I had the victim mentality. It was always somebody else's fault. It was always coach's fault because I wasn't in the game. It was always, the teacher's fault for writing me up. I didn't do nothing. Until I start taking ownership of my life and who I am and how I got to where I am, and knowing that I'm the common denominator in a lot of things that have me where I'm at, that's where the power comes into place. And in order for me to go to the next stage is hope. And in order to have hope for the future, I got to know who I am and know that, okay, just because I've made mistakes, it doesn't make me unworthy of a great future. Because that's where I went wrong. I thought, oh man, like I've messed up too much in order for my life to be good, or in order for me to have a great family, in order for me to, have a great position in society. No, that's far from the truth. And for hope, it's like, I find it as being able to have that vision of your future, that faith that there's good for me on the other side of what I'm going through, no matter what my circumstances may look like. My circumstances don't dictate my strength. My circumstances don't dictate what I'm capable of becoming and growing into. And for me, hope was very slim, very little. When I was probably 15 years old, I told you I was a people pleaser. I put all my eggs into the basket of playing football. And my freshman year of high school, I looked nothing like the man that was on the stage here today. I was 5'7", 130 pounds, and I was riding the bench on the freshman team. And then my sophomore year when I was on the JV team, I think I played maybe one game and I got hurt, and I was wearing a cast, and I used to get made fun of for that. And, around that time, I realized that, people would be impressed by me playing football. And I didn't really think I could impress people in other ways. So when that kind of went down the drain and it felt what it felt like at that time, I had no hope. I felt like I had nothing to offer the world at 14, 15 years old. And that's a pretty depressing place to be in. And in order for me to get out of that, it took a while. And I don't even really feel like I got out of it through my good performance in football. Like I said, it all comes back to who I think I am and who I know I am. And for me, in order to develop that hope, it took me realizing that, my greatest values aren't in my football skills. My greatest values aren't in the way that I impress other people. My greatest values are in the resiliency that I develop in order to overcome certain obstacles. I see resiliency as a muscle that's been developed over time. For me, for somebody to overcome drug addiction, to overcome being arrested, being in court systems, all these different things, like it has to be a spirit of I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep continuing to put one foot in front of the other. And when you have hope for long enough and you continue to make just one choice, one simple choice, do the right thing one time and then do the right thing again, that leads to the I in SHINE, which is integrity. And integrity is something that has been so elusive for me for so long, because I define integrity as like a consistency of character. Like you always hear people talking about what people may do behind closed doors. Well, I just think integrity is I do the same thing when these doors are open and all you guys are sitting here, and as when there's nobody in here and it's just me. That's what I think integrity is. And for me, that never really was the case. It was always, like I said, wearing masks. It was always, I lived a double life. I could tell you one thing, I could have manners, I could be respectful to your face, but behind closed doors, I wasn't honoring anything. I got suspended multiple times in college, suspended from my teams in the NFL, suspended for a year, ultimately. And that all came down to, you could ask anybody who I was around, coaches, players, it was, oh man, it's a great kid. Like, I just don't know what's going on. It's because behind closed doors, that integrity wasn't there. It was just a facade. It was a front to put on to let you know that, hey, this is who I am. This is who I want you to see. But really, it was all from a standpoint of me. I didn't want you to view me the way that I viewed myself. And because the way that I viewed myself was, I'm not good enough since I was a kid. I'm not cool enough. I'm not smart enough. You know, the main wound I carried from my childhood on was, you know, I used to get told I wasn't black enough when I was a kid. And it's like, you know, you look at your skin, like, I'm always going to be black. I can't change that. And you tell me I'm not enough, of like, there's a disconnect there. And you always feel like no matter where you're at, no matter what you're doing, what I do, it just won't ever be enough for these people. And it may not be. And it took me a while to realize that I can't win that game if I'm going to play it. I've got to be able and be willing to build boundaries around my peace, around my hope, around the integrity that I'm building. And some people may not like that. It may risk their disapproval. It may risk them saying some things behind my back. It may risk, you know, I may not have very many friends. But at this point in my life, you know, I'm realizing it's quality over quantity at the end of the day. And, you know, in order to protect this integrity that I'm talking about, we move to the end and shine, which is saying no, which I already said before, is something that I've struggled with before, and I'll still struggle with today, you know, because I don't want to let people down. And I feel like that's a good quality when you don't take it to the extreme. Like, I can take it to the extreme sometimes where it's like, I don't want to let people down, so I'm going to do anything they say, or I'm going to say yes to everything just so they can be like, oh yeah, he's cool. Like, oh yeah, he's one of us. I remember vividly, there was a spring practice I went to my senior year of high school. I was committed to Georgia Tech to play football. And there was a kid that was coming in with me in the class. And we met each other. We were hanging out at the game, And then we get on campus. And he saw that I was like smoking and drinking and popping pills and stuff like that. And he was like, man, I thought you was lame, bro. Like, when I met you at the game before, like, I thought you was lame. Like, I'm glad, like, that's not the case anymore. And I was just like, like, those are one of those moments where I'm just like, man, like, I really suck. Like, and it's like, it's just, and you just keep pounding yourself over the head. But it's like, there are moments like that I had to learn to let go of, and realize that I'm not really missing out on anything by saying no. I'm really actually gaining. If I see it from the opposite perspective, it's like I'm saying no to something, but I'm really actually saying yes to other things. I'm saying no to drugs and alcohol these days, and I'm saying yes to, you know, a better version of me, a version of me I can look in the mirror and respect and, you know, have adoration for. You know, I say no to, you know, going out and going to the clubs and chasing women all around now, when I say yes to, you know, knowing myself, say yes to things that heal me, like therapy, like going to meetings, like being around people that I actually want to be around and that nourish my spirit, that help build me up mentally. When I'm going through tough times, I can say things to them. I can lay it out all on the line. And that's what I'm saying yes to today. So if any of y'all are fearing that, it's natural. My first 6 months of my sobriety, I was lonely. I was envious. I was like, you know, I'm starting to make a change in my life. I got to change all my friends. I got to change the way that I move. And it's frustrating. It's lonely. It seems boring out of the gate. But if something's true to you, if you feel it in your gut, like this is a direction that you should go, you need to trust that intuition. Just straight up. Like, there's no reason for you to continue to want to try to fit in and dim the light that's on the inside of you just in order to feel comfortable and to feel safe amongst people. That's not a life worth living. Getting up on stage and speaking, you know, I've gotten better at it with repetition, but it's still something that's uncomfortable for me. But I don't run from discomfort today. That's not something that I can afford to do anymore. I've done it long enough. The things that are uncomfortable are the things that end up being worthwhile. The things that are uncomfortable end up being the things that really fill me up when I was trying to chase all these little things around to try to fill me up that didn't quite do the job. You know, I've got to be willing to be uncomfortable. And so, you know, I've talked about self-awareness, talked about hope, talked about integrity, talked about saying no. I feel like these are all qualities that I build up personally from the inside out. And then the last letter of shine, which is encouragement, is the end goal. It's like the end point. Like I've prepared through these first 4 stages to be able to be a source of encouragement. And that is giving encouragement to somebody else, but at the same time, it's also receiving encouragement, which may not be very easy all the time. I've learned in my journey that love is not just telling somebody what they want to hear. Love is about telling and receiving the truth, which may sting a little bit. But, I see it like this. I make music, right? If my friends come to the studio and see me lay down tracks, and they're there and they're like, oh man, this is hard, this is dope. But then I go out into the world and everybody's like, this is trash. Like, what are we doing here? It's like, would you rather your boys have told you like, hey man, this ain't it. Like, why don't you try doing this? Why don't we try fixing that? Why don't we just do a little this, try redoing it with maybe a little bit of a different delivery? Like, that's what love is. And I'm realizing that now. I don't know if any of you guys know the book, The 4 Agreements. If you haven't read that yet, please go read it. It might change your life. As a matter of fact, it will change your life because it changed mine. My mom taped the 4 Agreements on my bathroom mirror in 2017 when I was in a bad spot, like bad. This was like before I went to rehab. And the 4 Agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And these are on my mirror. And it's like they were just eating at me, like, because none of which were in my life at the time, not even close. And I'm just like, man, why my mom is on me? Like, why is she just leave me alone? And until I read those things, and I'm like, oh, like, I need to change. And that was encouragement from my mom. I couldn't receive it as that at the time. And my mom showed love in a firm way. And, my whole life I thought she was just on my back, on me, like, but really now I can step back and see it from a much more mature perspective and realize, like, my mom wanted nothing but the best for me. That's all. She may have gone about it a little hard sometimes, but in the end, it was all love. And that's what's changing my perspective on what that is now. So for me, I feel like the best example of encouragement I can give you is to choose the hard route. Choose the route that's difficult. Choose the route that not a lot of people are willing to go. And you can be that source of encouragement for the people that are on your team, that are living with you, that are going to eat with you every day. Like, have those kind of conversations. I love sports just as much as the next man, but I feel like the way I connect to the guys and even women around me more is just having those real conversations, letting people into my life, sharing my story, putting it out there, putting the raw stuff out there, and realizing, like, oh man, like, I'm really trying to hide these things from people that are going through the same exact things that I'm going through. So it's like, for me, why wait around for that example? Why not be the example? Why wait around to see who's going to bless somebody? Why can't I bless somebody with my story, with the way that I walk, with my character? I had a teammate that got sober, and this really shook me because throughout his journey of getting sober and going through what he was going through before that, we didn't say a word about sobriety. We didn't say a word about drinking, drugs, none of that. But then here comes a couple years later where he's sober, and he thanks me for being an example. He said he looked at me in the way that I operated, in the way that I moved, as a reason for him to want to, motivation for him to want to change his life. And of course, he went through with the work. So, it's ultimately on him. But for me to be a catalyst without even knowing, that changed my mind. Like, okay, like, what am I doing everywhere that I'm going? What am I mindful of in my behavior, in my body language, and how I'm talking to people? Like, how can it be better? Because somebody may be watching me and seeing how I go about my business, and it may change them. It may inspire them to want to change their life. And I hope none of you in here doubt the fact that you have that power in you today, right now, in your sphere of influence, no matter how many people may be around you. Like, that's the ultimate goal. For me, it's not touchdowns and stats and all those things. Like, that's great if it's helping my team win, but it's like those things fade. Like, at some point, I'm not going to be able to go out there and run routes and separate from people. My body's not going to be able to hold up. Like, that game's going to go back in the box. Some of you guys may not be doing what you're doing today at some point in your life. What we do, like, every day is not what defines us. This is just something that we do. And we put our best into it. We respect it. We honor it. and we do the best that we can, but it's not who we are. So we can't say, just because I didn't perform well, you know, I'm a failure. Or if I perform great one time, I'm the greatest. Like, we got to find that middle ground. And that's where I feel like, you know, encouraging somebody else encouraging me. And, you know, at the end of the day, me encouraging myself, affirming myself, you know. The only story that matters is the story that you tell yourself. What my guy Donnie always tells me. And it's the truth, you know. How often, we always talk about people like talking to themselves as being crazy, right? And, but it's really like, I'll talk to myself out loud now. Like, I'm trying to get better at that, because it's like, if I don't dictate the narrative of what's going on in my head and what's going on in my spirit, somebody else or something else is going to dictate that narrative for me. And that's not a place that I want to be. And that's not a place that any of us should want to be, because we know what we want. We know who we ultimately want to be. And it's something that's good. It's something that's going to add to this world and make this world a better place. So why don't we stay present to the moment? Why don't we stay mindful of that and be resilient through all that we go through? You know, for me, I just want to challenge you guys today to take any of these principles that I've talked about today, anything from my life that I've put out here today. If anything can apply to your life, I challenge you to just reflect on it. I'm not here to try to beat anything into you guys' head. I just want to share and put things out, because the only way that I learned was by listening for somebody sharing it to me. And it's the truth to me. It's something that's changed my life from the inside out. And I want to make sure that I do my part by putting it out there for you guys to see and take from it however you will, you know. If any of you guys doubt what you're capable of, like I said, I've been arrested 3 times. I've failed countless drug tests, been suspended from every athletic team I've ever participated on since high school. You know, that's just who I am, a thief, a liar. Like, that's who I was, and that's not who I choose to be anymore. And now you see me in this position of success where I've been able to do some good things. It's just all a matter of resiliency. It's just all a matter of putting one foot in front of the other and continuing to show up, continuing to want to learn, continuing to be open-minded, and continuing to be willing to do things that are uncomfortable. And I know you guys have that character, that DNA inside of you. You train at it every day. You get reps at it every day. And I just challenge you guys to keep going. So that's all I got. Thanks.